Pipe down, folks. We got a treat coming up. So it is my great honor to introduce to you our keynote speaker for the evening, Miss Pam Stenzel. Her bio is on page 9. You can read it tomorrow, later. So Pam is a pro-life superstar. If there was a Hall of Fame, she would already be in it.
Here's how we do it. Just do this command silent.
Okay. Thank you. Pam is a pro-life superstar. If there was a pro-life Hall of Fame, she would be in it right next to Dr. Hogan. So she comes to us today from St. Petersburg, Florida. Pam was on the front lines for years as the director of the Alpha Women's Center in Minneapolis. Her experience taught her that before teen pregnancy and STD rates could decline, teens' attitudes towards sex had to decline. And she decided to do something about that. You'll hear more about that in a minute. She travels worldwide speaking to over 500,000, 500,000, young people and parents and educators every year. That includes you guys. It's been her experience that have given the facts today's young people can make good, healthy choices with regard to their sexuality. Pam is also the Senior Regional Clinic Director for Community Pregnancy Centers across Florida. My great honor to introduce to you Pam Stenzel.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Well, no, you're fine. So craziness, that was crazy. I can almost see you. It's like a train up here with the lights. And some of you are still thinking we're auctioning. I don't know. It's like speaking to a high school. I'm talking and you're not. That's how this works. People who are worse than freshmen. You're all right. You guys, you're fine. Yeah, no, you're fine. Unless later you want it moved. I'll jump around. I'm good right here. So I live in Tampa, as you heard, but I grew up in the great state of Michigan and met my husband in Bible college in Chicago. And I tease that in my next life when I'm dating in college. Excuse me, where are you from? Minnesota? Moving right along. I married a Minnesota farm boy, spent many years in Minneapolis and then on the farms in Minnesota. I have 3 children. They're all grown. And when my youngest son graduated from high school, he said, Mom, I'm going to UT Austin. I'm not coming back to Minnesota. I said, good, because your dad and I are moving to Florida. That is it. I have had enough of Siberia. Someone maybe should have warned me a little bit about moving to Florida during menopause. That was maybe not the best decision. But I'm enjoying it there. I am not only the mother of 3, I'm the grandmother of 2. And I got to tell you, being a grandma is the greatest thing in the world. So awesome. My daughter is the only of my 3 children who is married, so I have amazing son-in-law. And I always said, if you can survive dating the sex lady's daughter, you're doing really well. So that's a good guy there. So that is my family. I've had the opportunity over 20-some years to travel around the United States and around the world and speak to students about sex. But before I started doing that, I spent 9 years counseling in pregnancy clinics in Chicago and then in Minneapolis. And for years, I would have girls in my clinic every day saying, Pam, I didn't know. If someone would have told me that this is what was going to happen, I would have made a different choice. No one told me. I began to ask these girls in my clinic, what could we have said? What could someone have said to you before you made that choice that might have helped you to have made a better choice? And after 9 years, I realized that we had a lot of students out there making decisions about sex, having absolutely no idea, none, what the consequence of that choice would be. I tell kids every day, and we'll be speaking to students tomorrow morning, but I tell students everywhere I go, I didn't come to your church, to your school, to this youth conference to decide for you what you're going to do about sex. Not why I'm here. I'm not the sex police. I'm not going on your dates with you. I don't have time. What I don't want you to ever again have to say is nobody told me. I didn't know. Today you're going to be told what you choose to do when you walk out of here is completely up to you. It's desperately important that a generation hear the truth. We're not responsible for what they do with the truth. We're responsible to tell them the truth. God created sex. It's awesome, right? I love it when I'm in faith-based settings because I get to start that way, right? It was God's idea, not yours. God wants you to have great sex. He does. This is not about wrecking your fun and ruining your weekend. Now, I grew up in church. I grew up in the Baptist church. So I had a little weird ideas about God when I was a teenager. I thought God was bored one day and he didn't have a thing better to do. So what he thought would be fun, we would make a bunch of rules to ruin my life. So he wrote the Bible, the 10 Commandments, which we all know are rules to wreck everybody's fun. And if that wasn't bad enough, when I was a kid in church, we used to sing this song all the time. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see, for the Father up above is looking down in love. I didn't hear the in love part. I heard the Father up above is looking down with lightning bolts ready to fry you if you blow it. That is God's job. Make up a bunch of silly rules, stand up there all day and watch you. God loves us and God loves me. God did not, put all of these rules and boundaries in place to wreck our weekend. He did it to give us life, to bring us life. Jesus said he came to bring us life, right? And when we honor him, we get life. When we do not, we get death. It's something that our culture has not figured out yet. The wages of sin is... And I don't know if you know this, but you cannot sin safely. It can't be done. There are not enough vaccines and condoms to allow you to sin safely. There will always be a consequence. What's the boundary for which God created sex? Help me. Marriage. So good. You're so sweet. Marriage is the right answer. Your kids don't believe that. You know how many church kids I've had in my clinic come in for pregnancy tests? But we loved each other. God did not create sex for love. That is not the boundary. God created sex for one context and one only. Permanent, lifetime commitment, marriage. Not love. Now, sometimes in marriage there's love. That's helpful. On occasion there's not the criteria. Well over 30 years ago, I walked an aisle and I said these words to a young man whom I loved. You and you only, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death. Dude, I was brain damaged. So is he. Guess what we got? Sicker, poor, and worse. Sorry to burst your bubble. Somehow before we get married, when we're teenagers, teenage girls, we think marriage is going to be happily ever after, excitement, heart-pounding romance. One big long date. I blame Disney. My marriage didn't look like that. Looked at my husband and said, my goodness, it's got to be you because I'm the most exciting thing that ever lived. If there are problems in my marriage, people, it is his fault. If I dump this one and find a better one, I'd have a great marriage. My marriage has problems because I'm in it. I did not say I'll stay married to you if. I said I'm committed to you for the rest of my life, no matter what. That is a safe context for sex. Covenant, sacrament. And I love God's law because it's easy. It's not complicated. Doesn't take a 4.0. Either you're married or you're not. And you can't be kind of married or almost married any more than you can be kind of pregnant. It is an A or B situation. And here's the other reason I love God's law. And here's where I'll not have any trouble with this tomorrow morning. I'm going to have all kinds of trouble with this one tonight. Because all of you thought, oh, she talks about chastity. Isn't that cute? That's for teenagers. This boundary is exactly the same for every single person in this room. This is not a teenage deal. So here we go. If you are not married, don't do it. If you are married, go for it with the person you're married to. Have to put that in there. Some of our politicians get confused. You're not on a date going, I don't know, does he love me? He said he's really cute. We went to Jared's last year. What should I do? Are you married? No, then don't. I tell kids every day, you forget everything I tell you, and there's only one thing you can remember. Here's what I want you to hear. If you have sex outside of marriage, if you have sex outside of one permanent monogamous, and monogamy does not mean one at a time. That is one partner who has only been with you. You have sex outside of that context and you'll pay. There is a cost. No one has had more than one partner and not paid. So the questions we have to ask is what is the cost and is it worth paying physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Tomorrow I will have all the time in the world to unpack this. I don't have time tonight. So let me just say this. What is the biggest fear of teens having sex today? Pregnancy still makes no sense to me. Got a news flash for you. Pregnancy is not a disease. It's survivable. You can live through it. I've lived through it 3 times now. A few extra pounds here and there. Hasn't killed me yet. Girls come into our clinics for pregnancy tests. She's scared to death, waiting for the results of that test. I walk in, look at this little girl, and say, your test is negative, sweetheart, you're not pregnant. She gets this look of relief over her face. I am off the hook, not pregnant. Thank you very much. Let me out of your clinic. Wait a minute. Have you been tested for syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, lymphedema, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HPV, HIV? You've been tested for that? Me, I live in Warrenton. I don't live in Manassas. You mean I would need to be tested? This girl is in my clinic thinking she could possibly be pregnant, and she does not think she could have an STD. Our kids have a 5 times greater risk of contracting an STD than they ever have of being pregnant. Pregnant teenage girls in our country today are carrying, on average, 2.3 sexually transmitted infections. Let me tell you, we are at epidemic levels. CDC, the last year I have stats for, we had 28 million new infections with STD in this country, and a full 60% of that number were people between the ages of 15 and 24. That's our epicenter. If you grew up in the 60s, and I tell kids this all the time, go find a grandparent. Find someone who grew up in the 50s or 60s. Ask them, Grandma, were there STDs when you were a kid? Did people have them? Talk about it at school, at church? Did you have crazy speakers come to your church and yell about syphilis in 1965? No. Maybe a few people back then had an STD, got a shot of penicillin, moved on. Welcome 2023. We have over 30 sexually transmitted infections, 30% of them absolutely incurable. That means you get one of these STDs and you've got it for life, which is a lovely thing, guys, when you're getting ready to get married, young men. Found this girl you love? I mean, this is it. She's the one you want to marry. All those other girls, that was just messing around. This is the real thing. Pull out that diamond, look her in the eyes. If he's cool, he gets on his knees. You say, marry me. By the way, I've got genital warts. You'll get it too, and we'll both be treated for the rest of our lives. In fact, you'll probably end up with a radical hysterectomy, cervical cancer, and possibly death. But marry me. Well, I'm excited now. Thanks for sharing. You wanted to tell your wife? This is an epidemic level. Of the 30 major STDs we're dealing with today, 26 of them primarily damage women. The other 4 damage both. I know this is very unpopular and very unpolitically correct, but I'm very used to that. Men and women are different. We are not the same. Women have an open sexual system. Men have a closed sexual system. Women are easier to infect and easier damage. And the reality is that our women are paying the highest price for this epidemic STD situation, and most of that is in their fertility. Do your young women at your churches and at your universities understand that the choices they're making at 16 and 17 and 18 and 19 could mean that they will never, ever be able to be mothers biologically? Infertility has risen over 500% in women in just 1 decade. Literally hundreds of thousands of women who now find they cannot have children. And it's devastating. And the reality is these kids think there are no consequences to the choices they're making. And these consequences can be devastating. Pregnancy, obviously, is a consequence. I've had to tell a lot of young women, as I'm sure all of the nurses here at Warrenton Pregnancy Center have had to do, we've had to tell a lot of young women that their test was positive. Immediately, they want an easy, painless way out of this pregnancy they didn't plan. And I have to look at this poor young girl and say, guess what, sweetheart? Your choices at this point are bad, terrible, and even worse. Those are your options. You actually had a good choice. That was before you had sex. Now all of these choices in front of you are going to carry lifelong consequences. There's no easy way out of a pregnancy you didn't plan. Abortion is painful. We've counseled hundreds of women 5, 10, 15, 20 years after having an abortion still hurting. Our culture is telling them it's an easy way out, it's health care, it's no big deal. The reality is very different. I know right now in our country we're looking to the Supreme Court to see what they will say, but a full 60% of abortions done now are done via chemical abortion pills. Women are given a horrible pill, mifepristone. They're giving that first. It basically blocks the progesterone and slowly starves and kills that child. And they're instructed 48 hours later to take a second drug that will put them into labor, and they will then deliver their now dead child. I opened a clinic at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and because we needed to be in, and that's our population, that's the kids we need to be in front of. And I was in the clinic last semester, and a very distraught young girl came in. She was bawling, just literally sobbing, and she admitted that she had taken those drugs and that they had told her just to just lay in her bed, maybe take a little bit Advil and deal with the pain, and it would be no big deal, just like a painful period. She went into her shower, and she delivered her 9-week little baby. On the shower floor, she picked that little baby up and saw the hands and the feet and the head and was so distraught. She put it in a Tupperware, bawled, and walked into my clinic and said, "I don't know what to do." She was lied to. She was lied to by an industry that tells her it's no big deal, it's not a child. She was absolutely devastated. And we're seeing this devastation regularly. One of the greatest things that we have right now at our disposal, and I know Warrenton Pregnancy Center is doing this as well, we have abortion pill reversal. If a girl takes that first drug and immediately regrets that, there is a way that she will call our national hotline and get a hold of someone who can do this reversal, and our clinic, our medical director, will immediately call in progesterone. All it is literally taking that first drug that blocked the progesterone and now flooding her body with that progesterone. And if we do it fast enough, if we can get her in time, we can save the life of those babies. And I want you to know that I had an abortion pill reversal client in Sarasota, my Sarasota clinic on Wednesday. Can I say this? Okay. And so I came to visit your beautiful pregnancy center here, and as I was touring your center, we had right here in your center an abortion pill reversal client today. So we want all of you to be praying for her, that she gets these drugs on board and those babies can be saved. And then I got back to my hotel, just a little break before coming tonight, and my Gainesville clinic at university had an abortion pill reversal, and we're getting her medication on board as we speak. And my ultrasound techs will see her tomorrow morning. Imagine that, 3 in 1 week for me. So we are saving the lives of these babies, but we're coming alongside young women so they don't have to deal with the pain that poor college student walked into my clinic with her dead little baby at 9 weeks. Abortion is a horrible, horrible situation that hurts women and damages the men involved as well. Just unbelievable. Parenting is not easy, especially as a teen. But it's important that our young people know that they're strong enough and that we're willing to come alongside them, and that being a mother is not a disease. And that being a mother, choosing to be a mother, does not mean that they have to give up their education and their life, and that there are people like you all here in the Warrenton Pregnancy Center who's willing to walk alongside these young women and saying, we'll be here for you. And to call out to young men, can we continue to do that? Young men to stand up and be fathers, to stand up and take responsibility, to not do what our young men have been taught for generations now, that they have no voice. I told some boys at University of Florida, they said, well, we don't have any voice because we don't have a uterus. I said, what, are you crazy? Just use your voice, and if they say anything about it, just identify as a woman and keep on going. Oh, what is this all about, you university students? Craziness. Some of our young men believe that the kind and loving thing to say is, I will support you in whatever you choose to do. And that might sound loving, it is not. What it's saying as a young man is that all of this is on you. I have nothing to do with the decision you're making. It's important that we come alongside young fathers and young men and say, stand up and be a dad. This is your child. Speak up. Step up. The third option a young girl has if she finds herself pregnant, which I happen to think is one of the best options, but it's not without pain, it's adoption. The ability of a young girl to take the child she's carried with her for 9 months and loves with everything she is, to say, I want what's best for my child, and I'm not it. And I am willing to go through all of this pain in order to give my child a family. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of maturity, and a lot of love. That is not easy. People, 1.5 million requests for adoption will go unanswered in our country this year. 1.5 million couples who would love to be parents before Christmas who will not be. The average adoption of infants in this country now takes between 5 and 7 years and costs between $40,000 and $80,000, and that's because we have no infants available. 98% of women in an unplanned pregnancy who carry their children to term, not the abortion stat, 98% of those who carry those children to term will parent their child. 2% will place. And the reality is, I just told you, we have massive infertility. It's a perfect storm, massive infertility, and absolutely no infants available for adoption in our country today. I also work with an organization called Safe Haven Baby Boxes. A girlfriend of mine started that program in Indiana. We created a program where we built a device that's built into the fire stations and the hospitals. It looks like a bank deposit box. That's not what it is. But it's built into the side of a fire station. If a woman wants to anonymously surrender her infant unharmed, she can walk up to that electronic device at that fire station or hospital, open the door, alarms are immediately sounded. She places her child in a bassinet that's completely climate controlled, and then she shuts that door. When the door shuts, it is locked, and it will be retrieved by the paramedics or hospital staff within 3 minutes. We now have 140 boxes in 9 states across this country. And we have helped, as of last week, 28 women surrender safely their newborn infant and in the actual Safe Haven baby boxes. But since we opened 2018, we have helped 130 women, because if there are no boxes available, like in Virginia, I've got to talk that mother in to walking into that fire station or hospital and physically, face-to-face, handing that baby over to paramedics or hospital workers. The only thing the box does is take away that face-to-face surrender. But we've helped over 100 women safely, legally surrender their infant and keep them safe. It's amazing. 58 years ago in the state of Michigan, a young 15-year-old became pregnant. She had a lot of difficult choices. Maybe more so than some teen girls, she was raped. But this 15-year-old girl chose to give her child life and then to place that child with an adoptive family. And that child was me. My biological father is a rapist. I don't even know my ethnicity. But I am still a human being, and I still have value. And I do not believe that my life is worth less than yours simply because of the way I was conceived. And I don't believe that I deserve the death penalty for the crime of my biological father. And I've listened to the rhetoric my whole life. My whole life, I've listened to people say, well, every child should be wanted and planned. I've heard this said in the church. Well, I wouldn't have an abortion. That's horrible. I wouldn't kill my child. But if it were rape, you're a mistake, Pam. I don't believe that. I believe that every child is wanted by someone. And I believe that God in His mercy had a plan for me. And I can't explain that to you, and you can't me. Don't try. It was every Bible professor's worst nightmare in college. You want to talk about the sovereignty of God and free will of man? Because I have a question, and be really careful how you answer it. Did God plan me? I memorized a verse when I was little that went like this. I knew you before the foundations of the world, formed you in your mother's womb. Did that mean me, or did that just mean you? Did God look down that night in November of 1965 and say, oops, what am I going to do with this big mistake right here? I don't have all the answers and won't pretend to. But let me tell you something I do know tonight. I know that my God is so awesome and so amazing that he is capable of taking your worst pain, whether it was something you chose or whether it was something that was done to you. And my God can make something very beautiful come from that. That's amazing grace. That is redemption. I have spent my life walking alongside young women in unplanned pregnancies because I firmly believe with all my heart. Well, and I got to say this, never had the opportunity to meet my biological mother. I opened up all my records when I was 19 years old. But she not only gave me my life, she gave me a family. I'm the oldest of 8 children, 7 of us adopted, every color of the rainbow in my family. We are the United Nations by ourselves. My brother, just younger than me, is the bio child, the real one. My parents tried to get pregnant, couldn't get pregnant for 7 years. They adopted me, and 3 weeks later had my brother. And then never again, adopted 6 more. So my brother's my buddy, the bio one. I sent him a birthday card on his birthday. I couldn't wait to give it to him. It said, "Dear brother, on your birthday, I just wanted to remind you." You open it up, it says, "I was planned, you were an accident." We tease each other a lot in my family, but that was a gift. That family was a gift from a very scared 15-year-old girl. I will forever be grateful to her for that. And I've spent my life working with young women because I believe that what my birth mother needed in that horrible moment of trauma was not to have me violently ripped from her womb, to repay violence with more violence. What she needed was someone to love her. What she needed was someone to come alongside her and to say, "We're here for you and we're not walking away and we are going to be there for you on this journey and walk this road with you." People, that is what Warrenton Pregnancy Center does every single day. It is us walking alongside. It is us being Jesus to women in crisis. And you know what? Let me be really clear, church. This woman in the middle of this crisis is not going to don the doors of your church. She might have gone, but in this crisis, that's not where she's going first. But guess where she will go? She'll come to us. And when we can be the hands and feet of Jesus in this crisis and love her, our goal is that she will receive that help and that healing and that grace so that we in turn, church, can hand her back to you, where you can disciple and help her grow and help her be the mom that God's called her to be, or whatever it is, the decisions that she makes for her child and her family. That's the job that we're doing. I really believe that firmly. I believe this is a gospel ministry, and the only real answer to the problem in our culture is the gospel. And without the gospel, we will have no life. And that's why we're calling you as people who love Jesus and people who are committed to bring truth and love and grace into the lives of a very hurting culture, that you allow us to be there in the midst of that crisis. Every single day, what you're supporting here today is not only saving the lives of unborn children, which is beautiful and we celebrate that, but you cannot save the lives of babies without loving their mothers. And what we have to do is love these mothers and come alongside them and be Jesus' hand and feet in their life. I am going to turn this over because there's more that you need to hear, but can I leave you with this? I've been doing this a very long time. Oh, Patrick already told you because he wanted to make sure you knew I was old. But I'm looking at the faces, some at our table, the doctor and his wife who've been doing this way longer than me, and pro-life heroes. And you know, we get discouraged sometimes, don't we? And when we see the evil in the world, and even when we have amazing success like Roe versus Wade going down in June, you understand that abortion did not end. That was the beginning of the battle. And some of us are very battle weary, are you? I've been there, and there are times we think it's too big, and I can't give one more day, and I'm tired of the fight. But I'm going to tell you something. This is a quote I've taken with me my whole ministry, and it's from St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and I want you to hear this because we have to remind ourselves of this every day. God did not call us to be successful. He called us to be faithful. Church of Jesus Christ, let's be faithful as we go from here. God bless you.